Seconds. Good evening, Blue Golds. We have people tuning in who attend Barron County, Marshfield, and the Eau Claire campus. So welcome to our UW-Eau Claire Town Hall for students and their families. We are glad you joined us tonight. I'm Billy Fells, Interim Executive Director for Enrollment Management, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's sessions. We are excited to be talking to you about the fall semester. Our goal in the next hour is to provide you with information about the return to campus. We want you to know what we are doing to keep our campus healthy and to share what we will be asking you to do when you come back in the fall. As a reminder, you can always find the most up-to-date information on our COVID-19 website with return to campus information for students. Tonight is about getting your questions answered, so you are invited to use the chat function on your screen. You will need to register using a Google account, then simply type in your question. Don't worry if you don't have a Google account, because you can also send an email to questions@uwec.edu. That email will be available for our town hall only, and no matter which option you choose, we're going to try to answer your questions tonight. We're going to do as many as possible. So let's introduce our presenters. Tonight, first, we have Chancellor Jim Schmidt, known as Chancellor Jim to our students.
Hello, everyone.
We have Vice Chancellor Warren Anderson, who oversees our equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives, and as well as student affairs.
Good evening.
We have Associate Vice Chancellor Mike Carney, who has been working on our academic classes and what they will look like in the fall semester.
Good evening.
Dr. Pat Kress, Director of Student Health Services.
Hello and good afternoon.
And Quincy Chapman, Director of Residence Life.
Hi, everybody.
So we're going to start the panel off by asking each of you a question so we can provide an overview of our return to campus plans. And we'll start with Chancellor Schmidt. So could you please tell us, Chancellor, how the decision was made to return to our campuses this fall and how we were preparing for a safe return?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the faculty and staff who made it possible for us to complete our spring semester safely off campus and in a virtual environment. It was an incredible amount of work to make that possible so that there wasn't an interruption in the course of study for our students. I have to tell you, though, only weeks into the online semester, I began hearing from many of you saying how much you look forward to being back on campus, and while you appreciated the work of the faculty and staff, it wasn't quite the same. You know, UW-Eau Claire is known for its in-person collisions, the opportunity to bring people together and exchange ideas. But the challenge this fall is, how do we do it safely? We know that it's important to follow all of the health guidelines. You've got a team at UW-Eau Claire doing multiple different groups focusing on different areas, making sure we're following CDC guidelines and taking all the necessary precautions to ensure as safe as possible return to campus. There's no place that can really hide from this virus. We know that it's cropping up in unexpected places, and we know that no place is going to be 100% safe. But it's important that we follow the guidelines of this program. It comes down to, we will be requiring wearing masks while on campus, certainly at all times when you're indoors, except maybe in your own dormitory room. And we're going to strongly encourage that everyone wear masks while they're on the campus itself if we can't ensure at least a 6-foot distance. Of course, we want to make sure we're practicing social distancing, so we've pulled a lot of furniture out of the classroom to ensure that there's 6 feet between each of the students in a given class. Of course, we want people to wash their hands, and we'll also be asking that all students and faculty and staff monitor their health daily through an app that is HIPAA compliant and was developed in collaboration with Mayo Clinic through the Wanek Center for Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome, based in Rochester in that research center. We've developed a plan to returning to campus for our faculty, staff, and students, and we're developing what's called the Blue Gold Flight Plan. And we'll be asking students to sign the Fly Right Pledge. Indicates that you're willing to be a part of our community, that you're willing to help us all come back safely to campus. We will be providing everybody some landing gear as we have a flight plan. where each of you will receive 2 unique UW-Eau Claire masks so that you know which ones you wore which day, and hopefully you'll take time to wash them out and they'll dry quickly. And we'll also be providing every Blue Gold a thermometer because we want Blue Golds to take their temperature daily and monitor a number of other health symptoms. By working with the Mayo Clinic and other healthcare providers in the area, we're making sure that we've come up with a way to quickly identify people who are showing symptoms. You'll hear in a little bit from Dr. Kress what we've done to invest in the proper testing equipment for this campus so we can identify quickly and isolate and quarantine people as they test positive for COVID. There's still lots of things we're working out. We'll be getting to many of your questions later. Know that we're working carefully throughout the summer to try to anticipate as many issues as possible.
Thank you, Chancellor. Now, Dr. Anderson, can you tell us what students can expect when they come to campus this fall, whether in Barron, Marshfield, or Eau Claire?
Thank you, Billy. One of the things that was evident from the very beginning, is, as the Chancellor alluded to earlier, is that everyone wanted to be able to come back. And we wanted to make sure that you could come back face to face, but do it safely. That's our main goal, is to make sure that everyone is safe when you come back, that you're protecting yourself, that you're protecting each other, that we can keep the community safe as much as possible. There will be requirements, though. Each student, each employee will be required to wear a face mask while on campus. That's going to be required while you're in any physical building on campus, and we're going to highly recommend that you wear them when you're not inside and you're outside, if you can't possibly physically distance. You're also going to notice that in a lot of the buildings, a lot of the furniture has been removed, and that's our effort to ensure that you can physically distance wherever you are on campus. You're also going to be required to enter your daily health information into the app that the Chancellor spoke about earlier. And that's going to be required whether you're on campus or not, whether it's Tuesday or Saturday. So every day of the week, we want you entering that information so that we can ensure the minute a symptom pops up that could be attributed to COVID, that we're getting you the medical attention that you need. That, again, is our way of making sure that we're keeping the environment safe. You're going to be able to get a test as a student if you need to in Student Health Services. Again, the minute something happens, you're going to be directed to Student Health Services so we can get you tested and get you all the help that you need if that comes up. Our hope is that we don't see any aspect of COVID on our campuses, but if we do, we've set aside a residence hall specifically for those that need to be isolated. We've made sure we're in the process of making sure that everything a student would need while they're isolated, that they have access to, and we can provide that as well. We're working to limit large group gatherings as much as possible across campus. We're limiting who has access to campus. Again, making sure that once we're all together, we can work as a community to keep each other safe. We're still waiting on a decision for sports. We want to make sure that if you're here, while you're here, we provide as much of a robust student engagement experience possible. We are working with Student Life and activities to do whatever we can to ensure that all of the things that you've come to love about being a Blue Gold here, that you still have access to. So we're going to make sure that we're doing everything we can to ensure that your experience here is one that you fully expect when you return in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Dr. Carney, we're going to switch and talk about classes. So we know that we're going to have to make changes to our courses, especially labs and large classes. Can you describe what will be different this fall? And will students have any online options if they are concerned about being in a class physically?
Yes, the fall semester will be different. Our goal, as the Chancellor mentioned, is to provide as much in-person instruction as possible. For the safety of the students and the faculty, we've reimagined all of our classrooms to ensure 6 feet of separation between the bodies in the room, which will often result in a reduction in the capacity of the room by between 50 and 70%. While students are in the classroom, as has been mentioned, they will be required to wear masks, and they will be asked to sit in specific locations to help keep everyone safe. Because of the seating capacity reductions, for some classes, it may not be possible for every student to attend every lecture during every class period of every week. In those instances where the student is not physically present in the room every class meeting, the lecture instructor could pre-record their lectures and use the class time, the in-person class time, or smaller group discussions or problem-solving sessions. This approach is sometimes referred to as a hybrid course or a flipped classroom, and this was actually a very popular alternative teaching strategy even before the pandemic. Alternatively, each classroom will have a web camera, which allows the instructor to live stream their lecture to students who may not be physically present in the room. For lab classes, it is possible for half the students to be physically present in the lab on a given week to perform a hands-on activity, and the other half of the students will be doing some sort of a remote activity or an online activity. And then the students will switch. So the group that was not physically present in week 1 will be physically present for the hands-on activity in week 2. And this also is an approach that has been used prior to the pandemic, primarily by larger universities. If students are not feeling well, they should not come to class. And if they are not feeling well, they should inform their instructor that they will not be physically present in the class. In those instances, they should communicate with their instructor, and as I mentioned, the instructor will have the ability to live stream the lecture for remote viewing.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Dr. Kress, you've been working closely with our Eau Claire County Health Department. Can you tell us why we're asking students to use an app to monitor symptoms, and what will happen if a student has a fever or is not feeling well?
Thanks, Billy. Yes, Student Health Service has a full medical clinic. We offer treatment for anything from strep throat to influenza, IV rehydration, mental health issues, bone and joint injuries, women's health, and now COVID-19. We have also designated an area, the respiratory care area in our clinic, to help separate students that could possibly have COVID-19 from students that are healthy coming in for a regular physical or other reasons. The COVID app that we're asking you to use daily asks you to put your temperature in with that thermometer that you will be given when you reach campus. And then it also has a list of possible COVID symptoms like headache, sore throat, cough. We are asking that all students use this app every day so that we can pick up very quickly any new cases of COVID-19. By catching it early, we can track and trace any contacts of that person, thereby markedly reducing the spread of COVID-19 on the campus and allowing us to stay open. So we strongly encourage students to do this every day. The app does not do any GPS tracking. It is HIPAA privacy compliant, and only a few select professionals will have access to the data. We will be tracking and tracing to contact all students who may have been exposed to a person with COVID-19. We will never expose the name of the person that has been diagnosed. In Eau Claire, Putnam Hall has been set aside, and in Barron, arrangements have been made at a hotel at no cost to the student to accommodate any needed quarantine or isolation situations. This is usually a 10 to 14-day process, but it's very dependent upon your specific set of circumstances. If a student has a fever, is not feeling well, or answers yes to any question on the app, we are asking that you call Student Health Services. We will talk to you and see if a test is indicated, and if it is, we will help you get that set up. When we get our own analyzer, which has been ordered, along with the COVID cartridge testing kit, we will be able to administer the test up at Student Health Service and have a response within an hour. This would be done free of charge to the students.
Great, thank you very much. And Quincy, you've been working all summer to make sure our students can return to the residence halls. We know that students will have roommates this semester, and can you tell us what precautions you are taking in the halls to make them healthy and safe?
Thanks, Billy. We're excited to have the opportunity to have students be back on campus and interacting with one another, because we know that a major part of the campus experience is those interactions and learning from one another, studying with one another in the environment. It's what makes the Eau Claire experience that much better. One of the biggest things that we've been working on is our cleaning and support services to make sure that the residence halls are a place that protects everyone's health. And so we will be tripling the amount of cleaning that we're doing by augmenting especially bathroom cleaning, but also common area spaces. The cleaning supplies that we use to clean our areas are the same supplies that are used in hospital settings to disinfect and clean. We will also be providing additional disinfecting and cleaning supplies in common spaces for students, so that if they want to sit down and use a table, for instance, they'll be able to disinfect that table before and after their use. And we also will have sanitizer spread throughout the residence halls to make sure that there's no excuse for not consistently washing our hands. We will have a move-in process that is spread out, significantly more spread out than is typical for us, so that we can do the social distancing that's so important during move-in. So we've provided 2 early drop-off weekends on August 15th, 16th, and August 22nd, 23rd, which will allow students just to bring their things with their family helpers and drop things off, not stay the night, but then return when we're back for official opening. And then we've added 2 additional move-in days for students to use during formal move-in, which begins August 26th. Students and families will receive information from the housing office asking you to sign up in advance for your move-in time, so that we can assure that that we are socially distancing when we're moving in. Most of the activities that we're used to will continue, but they'll look different in terms of programs, events, and activities. They'll happen in smaller groups rather than large group gatherings, but there will be a wide and vast array of activities for students to enjoy. We will pay careful attention to students using masks, and that includes their guests inside the residence halls using masks in the residence halls. So that we will enforce that, and we'll make sure that at all times when it's practical, that everyone's wearing a mask. So in hallways, common spaces, stairways, students will wear their mask. They do not need to wear a mask inside the residence hall room unless the roommate asks them to do that. We will limit the group size in common spaces. So places that students would gather, there will be caps on the number of students that can be in that room, as well as the furniture will be distanced, so that we can take care of everyone's health and safety. And we will have some limits to amenities, although not as many as you might think. What we will do for kitchens, for instance, is that students will be able to check out or schedule an opportunity to use a kitchen, so that we can assure that the student has disinfected it when it's finished. And then we will have a limitation on the number of guests in all residence halls. We will allow visitation, but it will be limited in number, and guests will need to be pre-registered and answer some health screening questions and have their temperature taken, so that we're sure that those entering campus are also safe. Finally, we're working hard on dining options to make sure that everyone can eat in a safe location. So the dining will look a little different than students experience in the past, in that there will be more pre-prepared options and fewer sort of self-selected ingredients, just to make sure that it can be prepackaged in a safer environment.
Thanks everybody for your answers to get the panel started. And we are now going to switch and start answering the questions that have been coming in through the chats and the emails. And so Chancellor, as you know, Blue Gold Marching Band is one of our pride and joys. So can you tell us what that looks like for the fall?
Well, it's tough when you've got the world's largest marching band with more than 500 strong. Frankly, we're still figuring some of these things out, and that's true for all of the music programs. We've learned our choirs and our bands are all have some high-risk activities. I know that our faculty are already looking at ways they can separate choirs into groups of, say, 8 per group and keep them socially distanced. And I know that Randy Dickerson is busy interacting with marching bands from all over the country, taking a look at the safest ways that they can bring them together. One of the complications is we will be following public health guidelines. And at the moment, they're not allowing no group of more than 250 people to even meet outside. So clearly, we couldn't have the entire marching band together. And even if we did, we wouldn't have people to watch them. So campus will look different in the fall. We're still looking at things. Things are changing week to week, month to month, and we can do our best to prepare for what we might expect. But as we know with this virus, we have to expect the unexpected.
Right. Our next question is for Dr. Kress. For students with certain health conditions, wearing a mask can be extremely difficult. Will there be any accommodations made for those students?
The unfortunate thing that there really is no good substitute for a cloth face mask. You might see some shields out there, but they have not really been shown to help with any spray that you might give off when you're speaking or whatever. So as a general rule, we are going to say that we really need you to wear that face mask. If you really have an issue, you could talk with your provider at home or come see one of us at Student Health Service, and we can kind of talk about things and see if we can come to some kind of compromise.
And our next question is about masks as well. And so can we have a conversation about, as we're requiring students to wear masks, how will we ensure that they are washing those masks as they are distributed? So Quincy, Dr. Kress, Dr. Anderson, we've got laundry facilities. I'll let the three of you decide who wants to talk first about that question.
I can jump in. The fact of the matter is we have to, that's one of the expectations that everyone is going to have to take on their own to make sure that their mask and all their other PPE equipment is clean and functioning. The unfortunate part of that is we can't be in everyone's rooms and homes making sure that you're washing your face mask. So as we start the semester, we're going to ensure that everyone understands the necessity of not only wearing a mask, but understanding the need you have to keep it clean so you're not inhaling anything that is on the one side of the mask and you flip it on the other. We've given you two, so hopefully that allows you to do some intermittent cleaning whenever you need to, but we do need those masks to stay clean to keep everyone healthy.
And just real quick for residents, all students, laundry is included in your room rent. You don't pay extra for that, so there's no excuse to not do laundry. You can't tell your mom and dad that you have to bring all your laundry home because it's already included. So, but the other thing that we will do to help students is we will have a good number of posters and digital media displays reminding students about the importance of hand washing, social distancing, cleaning their mask, etc.
And for cleaning masks, they can just be washed by hand with a little bit of soap, any kind of soap. Soap is what breaks the capsule off the virus and deactivates it. So it's not a huge deal. You just wash it, even in a sink, with a little bit of any kind of soap, hang it out to dry, and hopefully it'll be dry by the time you have to switch it out for the other one.
Great. Good answers, everybody. Thank you very much. Dr. Carney, you started talking about courses, and so we've got several questions about what those could look like in the fall. And so are students able to remain home if all of their professors intend to keep classes online? Also, what, other than performance-based studies, prevent the university from transitioning to all online classes?
Well, in terms of being able to have a full schedule online, that really is student dependent. It depends on what their major is and what year of their program they are in. So it is possible for a student to have a fully online schedule, especially if they're taking primarily introductory level classes, and we have those classes offered online this fall. I will say that we will have more online offerings this fall than certainly at any point in my career, and that's partly due to the fact that we don't physically have the spaces on campus to offer all of our classes fully in person. And we also have faculty who must teach remotely because of an underlying health condition. So there will be lots of opportunities for students to have access to online courses. The second part of your question was, I think, more geared towards classes that have hands-on requirements. In those cases, it is difficult to replicate the hands-on experience in an online environment. So if the student is in a major that has a significant lab component or a significant hands-on component, it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to offer that class in a completely online format.
Thank you very much. Quincy, what will the university do if the rooms set aside for quarantine in Putnam Hall are filled? Are there going to be other options?
Well, the good news is that Putnam is a significant enough size that we can accommodate a great many students who need to be self-isolated. But we have already been in discussion with several of the hotels that are adjacent to our campus, and they have given us some bids so that if we do need to use a hotel adjacent to campus to isolate, we can do that as well. So we're in good shape there.
Great, thank you. lot of good questions coming in from our viewers, so thank you very much, and keep those coming in. Dr. Carney, in the light of announcing, I feel like you're getting picked on tonight, Mike, or you're getting all the questions in the early part. In the light of the announcement regarding international students who will have their visas canceled if the university they attend offers an online-only curriculum, what adjustments might UW-Eau Claire have to make?
Well, our plan is to not offer a fully online curriculum. Our plan is to offer a primarily face-to-face curriculum, which does allow international students to take a very small number of credits fully online. I mentioned a hybrid course delivery model earlier, which is sort of face-to-face with some online component. That in the world of immigration, that does count as a face-to-face class offering. So our plan is to remain primarily face-to-face. If it does come to the fact that we have to go fully online, we will have to work with our international students to see if they can still participate in our classes remotely. And by remotely, I mean by synchronous live streaming of lectures.
All right. Chancellor, I have one for you now. And so, will the graduation requirement for service learning be adjusted due to the pandemic?
So Academic Affairs is working on that. For the students who are graduating this last spring, we did waive that requirement for that. But I don't believe a decision's been made for the fall yet, unless Mike Carney has that answer.
Decision has not been made for the fall, but if the conditions continue into the fall semester, such as we experienced last spring and over the summer, it's my expectation is that we will again waive the service learning requirement for students who are graduating in December.
All right. Good tag team there. Thank you very much. Dr. Anderson. Dr. Anderson, how will the university determine what organizations will be allowed to meet on campus in the fall?
Well, if they're referring to external organizations, we are prohibiting organizations outside the university from using or renting on-campus facilities. If they're talking about student organizations, we're working now to make sure that student organizations can still operate in the most robust way possible. So we're making sure that if student organizations are meeting, that they're practicing appropriate social distancing, looking at the rooms they're using, and moving some of their things online virtually. So we're working through every one of those scenarios. But again, student organizations and organizations on campus will be allowed to meet, provided they practice appropriate social distancing and safety measures. We are not allowing off-campus organizations to utilize any of our spaces on campus.
Good. Thank you very much. And this is a question that could go to either Dr. Kress or Dr. Anderson. So will students, staff, and workers be required to wear the provided PPE from the university, or are they allowed to wear their own PPE, store-bought or homemade?
I can answer that one. I think, to be honest, that two masks might not be enough for me. I might not get it washed off enough, so I would need more than two just myself. So if they are cloth masks that appear to fit well, I think that would certainly be acceptable. The bandanas have kind of gotten a bad rap lately, so that would not be the best thing to use. But if you used other face masks or ones that appear like surgical masks that you can buy at a pharmacy, those would absolutely be fine.
And again, our goal is just making sure everyone is safe and healthy. So if you have your own equipment, and as Dr. Kress said, it meets the minimum standards that the CDC puts out there, or that matches with the equipment that we give, you're allowed. You are more than welcome to wear your own.
Yep. And actually, in fact, to go back to the original question that Dr. Anderson answered, some of our student organizations are actually planning to do some mask sales as fundraising for their organizations. And so we hope that you will also support those organizations and purchase their masks as well. Dr. Carney, we are coming back to you again. So do faculty have the ability to determine if the class they teach can be moved to an online-only format?
They certainly are active participants in that decision. It is really a conversation between the faculty member, their department chair, and their dean to determine what the best mode of delivery for that particular class will be.
All right, thank you. Dr. Anderson, can you talk to us about how social distancing and masks on campus will be monitored and enforced?
Well, we're hoping that everyone takes it upon themselves to ensure that our environment stays safe. So people will be asking you to put your mask on. People will be asking you to put social distance in there. We are putting these requirements in place to keep the entire university safe. There are processes in place for students or employees who decide to willfully violate that, but we're hoping it doesn't come to that. The Blue Golds are really excited to get back and anxious, and I know we're going to do everything that we can to ensure that everyone is practicing all of the appropriate safety measures without having to go through any sort of penalty, if you will. We just know that the Blue Golds are going to take this seriously and do everything we can to make sure that everyone is safe.
Quincy, following that question, this one is for you. So how will social distancing be enforced in the residence halls, as RAs can't realistically be expected to monitor everyone? Or can they?
Well, we wish they could, but they're students too. So the RAs certainly have responsibilities in the evenings to monitor what happens in the residence halls during rounds. And when they're in the building, we ask them to pay attention to their surroundings. So I would say that realistically, RAs might remind students about their expectation that they have their mask on, and if they see that there's repeated behavior where someone's not willing to do that, they might document that. But in general, what we're asking for is really for the community to enforce itself. If we see something, we say something to someone. Would you put your mask on? And ask that also, if they see that there's someone who really has repeatedly not followed that they let us know, and as residence hall staff, we will follow up with that student.
Dr. Connie, I have another question for you. And so when will class schedules be available so that students will know what classes will be online and which ones will be face-to-face instruction?
Excellent question. We are going through several modeling exercises to determine where the courses will be taught, in which building and in which room. And we're modeling several scenarios, and my hope is that we will have answered to the majority of those questions within a week, which means students will have, and faculty who are teaching their classes will have a fairly good idea for where they'll be teaching the class and what format the class will be taught in, whether it's fully online, whether it's 100% face-to-face, which means students are in the classroom every single day, or whether it is a hybrid or a flipped classroom environment.
Mike, you did so good. We're just going to put the camera right back on you because I've got a follow-up question. So should students expect changes to their class schedules to accommodate smaller class sizes, i.e. moving around times and or online to in-person?
We are intentionally not moving times. So we are maintaining our normal meeting patterns, normal 50-minute sessions on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, normal 75-minute sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So our plan and our goal is to not sort of colloquially mess with the schedule. That does, however, mean that the classes will be taught in a different way. And that different way might involve a third of the students being present in any given class period, and the other 2/3 are participating remotely. Or in some instances, the class, because of its size or because of the need of the instructor, will be moved fully online. If that does happen, we will inform the student prior to it happening so that they are aware that it is occurring. And if they are not comfortable taking the class in that environment, then that is their signal to start to communicate with their academic advisor or their faculty advisor to see if there are other options for that class that fit with their overall schedule.
All right, Mike, you can take a breather. So we're going to switch to Quincy now. And so Quincy, for those choosing to live on campus in a single residence hall, what are the guidelines for guests in the residence hall room, i.e. guests, students, family members for overnight visits?
So generally speaking, we would like the campus to be as closed as possible. So we're not encouraging really anyone to visit and ask students to limit that. However, we understand that in a living environment, there will be times where students are going to want to have somebody visit. So the limit will be one guest per student at a time, unless it's their parents, and then they can have that extra parent visit as well. But we really don't want groups to come into the residence halls because that defeats all of our other precautionary measures. People who visit will need to be pre-registered by their residential host so that we know that they're coming, and they'll also need to check in at a location. The primary location they'll check in for all of Upper Campus will be Towers Hall, and their temperature will be taken, and they'll answer a series of pre-screening questions before they're given a guest pass to enter the residence halls.
Dr. Anderson, I think you're ready for a question. So when will Student Senate make a call on what student orgs can do in person?
We are working through that process right now. We wanted to finalize all of the other appropriate safety measures, and we are close to being all done with that. So within the very near future, we should be making some announcements about what student organizations will be able to do in the fall. It'll be announced in plenty of time for student organizations to adjust any plans they may need to adjust for the fall semester. But again, our goal is to make sure that student organizations can operate in the most robust way possible.
So Dr. Kress, we know that people get sick outside of just COVID. So how will the campus deal with students who may have common symptoms of COVID on a normal basis, such as headaches, a low-grade fever, and will be testing made free of charge to those students?
So if it's somebody, say they have allergies and always kind of have a runny nose and a little bit of a scratchy throat, that's part of the reason why we ask if you answer yes to any questions on the app, that you call us. And then we will ask those questions to determine, if this is your allergy season, you can ignore that. If there's any doubt, though, we will recommend testing because we don't want to accidentally allow someone with COVID-19 being in classrooms and in a dorm without us knowing, so that we could properly isolate them. So that's one of the reasons we'd ask them to give us a call, and then we will give them guidance over the phone. And the testing on campus, when it's available, will be free. Right now, there are 3 options in Eau Claire where you can do the drive-through testing. 2 of them, you actually have to drive there. 1 of them, you can walk up. 2 of them do charge your insurance company, so we can't have any control over that. Oftentimes it is covered, but we will never guarantee that. And then the one that you can walk up to is at this time free of charge, but it is something that changes literally week to week. And I actually just called and got this information yesterday, so I know this is up to date as of now, but student health will keep track of that, and we will know where is the cheapest, easiest, best place for you to get it until we get our analyzer and the COVID cartridges on campus. Once it's on campus, we have control and it is free.
Great. Dr. Carney, I do have another question for you. And so how does the university plan on helping students who stay home to keep their fellow Blue Gold safe from the negative consequences they might face? So how are we going to help students assist themselves when they may have to miss classes so they don't spread COVID? Sorry, that was a long question.
That's okay. As I mentioned earlier, if the students are not feeling well on a given day and wake up in the morning and they're just not feeling well, we do not want them to come to class. And they should inform their instructor that they will not be in class. And at that point, the hope is that they can still access the class if it's a lecture via the live streaming abilities that will be present in all of the classrooms. As I mentioned, all the classrooms will be outfitted with a web camera that allows the instructor to basically stream their video to any point on the globe, wherever that student may be.
And Mike, do you see them making any changes to the attendance policy based on what's going on with COVID?
We are encouraging faculty to not factor attendance into the overall grade because of the negative impact that will have on students who are experiencing these COVID-like symptoms or are fearful that they might have COVID symptoms.
All right, thank you. Dr. Anderson, Davies had limited seating before the outbreak, with students having to find other places to eat. Now with the new COVID-19 regulations, where will students eat?
That is one of the unfortunate side effects of having to socially distance. We are going to be removing even more seating from Davies. As mentioned earlier, a lot of the dining options, or all of the dining options, will be prepackaged, grab and go. Hence, we want you to grab your food and be able to eat it either on the go or when you get to your location. But unfortunately, we are going to see some limited seating. We're working to identify other spaces in between classes so that students can sit and eat their food, and we can turn those over again before class. That'll be announced closer to when students are here. But again, our blue goals, our students are resourceful. I'm sure they all understand why we have to take that step. But again, if you walk through any of the buildings, you will find no shortage of students sitting in any nook and cranny that we have here getting comfortable. So I'm sure that students will be able to find a comfortable place to sit and eat in between classes or on their way back and forth across campus.
Great. So it's dinner time. People must be hungry because we're getting some food-themed questions. And so, Quincy, how will students in quarantine receive meals on a regular basis?
Yeah, so students will complete an online order form, and we had some practice with this. We didn't have any on-campus cases last spring, but some students that did self-isolate, and so they practiced completing an online form, and then we drop off their day's worth of food at their door each day. So I think that what we'll ask is that for students that are in isolation, there will be a series of days that they'll order all at one time to make things more efficient for dining services. But because they can't leave their living location, we'll bring the food right to their door.
Chancellor, I've got a question for you now. Can you talk to us about McIntyre Library and how it will be affected by the pandemic, and what will the capacity and hours be like this fall?
So I have heard no discussion about shrinking the hours of the library, but they will be moving tables and furniture out for social distancing there as well. And I'm going to throw it back over to Mike. He oversees the library. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, the only thing to add is that we realize the library is a very convenient place for students to study and to, in some sense, hang out in between classes. So we're going to make that available as much as possible, with the understanding that we will have to be removing some of the seating to maintain proper social distancing.
All right, Dr. Kress. So here's a question for you. What will happen if there is a serious outbreak on campus, and how many cases would need to be confirmed for it to be considered an outbreak?
Believe it or not, 2 cases is considered an outbreak. So I'm afraid that we will fall into that category at some point. But 2 cases is not enough to close down the university by any means. And we would only think about that in conjunction with public health department putting in their input and helping us decide, okay, how much is too much?
Great, thank you. And Dr. Carney, can you talk to us about how classroom guests will be handled this academic year?
Well, if you're talking about guests, like family members who might happen to want to come to class, we are not going to be allowing that sort of thing. We will be limiting attendance to the classes to only be the students who are enrolled in the classes. If you're talking about guests from a guest speaker, that is possible for as long as the guest speaker is accompanied by a faculty member. But again, we're trying to limit the amount of visitors to campus as much as possible. And in cases where we might have a guest visitor or a guest lecturer, that we've figured out how to do that well in the spring semester by using interactive online meeting tools.
So Quincy, for students that live off campus, and if they test positive for the virus, will they be allowed to quarantine in Putnam Hall as well?
Generally speaking, yes. We don't expect that we'll have a size limitation unless things were to far exceed any of the forecasting so far. So yes, we will provide that service for students even who live off campus.
Chancellor, there is a question about what metrics will be used to determine if the virus has spread to a point that face-to-face instruction is no longer the best option.
So we can't specify metrics at this point. We are going to do what we've done in the past, which is follow the advice of local health officials. They're trained in this area. They know best how to contain public outbreaks of COVID. So it's impossible to say what number that would take in order to do that. We'll be consulting with them, just like we did in the spring. Frankly, one of the things that'll be taken into account, even if we decide that we're starting to see a small outbreak in the community, we have some options, which might be kind of a cool down period, where we have students take classes remotely for a few days or maybe even up to a week if it gets to that point, and then kind of see where things are at. We don't envision shutting down the campus in fall semester. We hope to get all the way to the end of the semester having live in-person classes. But even if things get to a significant level, that's not a defined number, we won't shut the whole campus down, because we know, based on public health officials, that many of the students will be safer if they stay in Eau Claire versus maybe return home, where the outbreaks could be more severe.
All right, thank you. Dr. Carney, we've been talking a lot about what's been happening in the classroom, so now we're going to switch to outside of the classroom. Can you discuss the plan for field experiences, such as student teaching, clinicals, internships, and how is COVID potentially going to impact those experiences?
Well, we experienced a little bit of that in the spring semester, where internships and clinicals and student teaching rotations were delivered in a different way. In some cases, internships will be, if they're possible, they might have to be done via telecommuting, so to speak. For clinical experiences, we will be adhering to the rules and regulations of the clinical providers in the region. If they are allowing our students into the facilities, then our students will be allowed to participate in clinicals in those facilities. Student teaching, again, we're at the discretion of the local public schools. If they are allowing students, if they are providing face-to-face instruction in the schools, then my expectation is that our students will be allowed into those experiences just like they would have been in quote unquote a normal semester.
All right, thank you. Dr. Kress, a lot of our students rely on city buses to get to campus. Will this be a safe way to travel in the fall?
That's a very difficult question. According to the local public health department, they still recommend 6 feet of distance, even on a bus. And as we speak, we are trying to come up with solutions for that, other options, different buses, whatever, to get students to campus.
All right, thank you. Chancellor, all the policies being discussed, do they apply to UW-Eau Claire Barron County as well?
Absolutely. We take responsibility for all the good folks at Barron County and our operation in Marshfield with the nursing program there. Everyone's required to wear masks. They're required to use the app daily. Even if you're not attending any of the other campuses, that app will be checked daily, and we do want the self-reporting.
Dr. Anderson, do you anticipate any changes in how food service will be handled in any of the cafeterias on campus?
Yes, there's going to be significant changes, namely because we want to make sure that we're not providing an opportunity for anything to spread. So there's going to be a lot of prepackaged meals, a lot of grab and go meals. That's in Davies, that's in the upper campus as well. So you will see some changes. You will see a lot less options, but we're still hoping to have the same kind of quality food that we've always had. There will just be a lot fewer options, and there will be in more grab to go and pre-plated orders in terms of you being able to order ahead of time and just pick up and go as you see fit.
Sounds good. And we actually have another question back to back for you. And so will the various gyms and workout facilities on campus be open during the semester as well?
We are hoping to have everything open, provided we can establish the appropriate safety measures. So a lot of the equipment may be spaced out, looking at some things in terms of the hours and everything else, but we're hoping that these facilities can be open. We're still working on a plan to finalize those. And again, as soon as those are finalized, we will get those out to the entire campus.
Great. This is a question that may be bounced back between the Chancellor and Mike Carney. And so as we think about shifting classes to online, will there be an increase or a decrease in tuition costs due to the impact of the COVID virus?
That one I can answer even without Mike's help. No, tuition rates have been set. They've been approved by the Board of Regents. If you're registered for a traditional class, you'll be charged that normal traditional rate. If you registered last year for traditional, they offered online course, there's a small fee that's attached to that, but we will not be adjusting those rates either way, so you can know that your tuition won't be any higher than what you anticipated when you registered for the classes.
And to be clear, if we do switch a class from a in-person format to an online format, Mike, we will not be adding that online fee, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Dr. Anderson, when students are outside on campus, do they need to wear the masks at all times?
Our expectation is that anytime you can appropriately social distance, that you are wearing a mask. While the transmission of COVID is less likely in an outdoor area, we still want to make sure that everyone is being as protective as possible over their physical space, their safety, and the safety of others. So we are strongly encouraging that you wear masks outside if physical distancing is not possible.
Great. And Dr. Kress, I have a question about off-campus employment. And so do you have any advice for how students can stay safe while they're on the job this fall?
I would say wear a mask at all times, and staying 6 feet apart from anybody that you're around as much as possible is huge as far as reducing viral spread. So wear a mask and pay attention to the 6 feet, and that's about the best you can do.
Hey, Billy, I want to jump in on this one, if I might. So just today, the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce announced an initiative where they're contacting all of the area businesses, and they're requesting that all businesses require masks of all their employees and encourage it for all of their guests. So if you have people coming in and out of those businesses, we are truly in this all together. And I strongly support the Chamber of Commerce effort to do that. I pointed out that we're requiring them on campus, and it makes a big difference if people in the community are also following it, because we're all in this together. And I think the city of Eau Claire and the Eau Claire business community is really being forward thinking in this.
Dr. Anderson, are you planning to increase mental health services and support for students given the stress of these experiences and the potential isolation associated with quarantine?
We know that this is going to be stressful for students. Our counseling department stands ready and able to service any of our students who need those appropriate services. We have become pros at doing telehealth, so students will still have full availability of all the services within counseling services.
Chancellor, there is lots of buzz around this concept of what's happening after Thanksgiving. So did you want to talk to the group about where you see the institution moving post-Thanksgiving?
So again, I think one thing we've learned is you can't guess what's going to happen with the virus. It is our intention to offer classes in person on campus with a full array of activities throughout the full length of fall semester. That's our decision. We're trying to make good choices to keep everyone on our campus safe. But we're also going to continue to reevaluate it. For those, all of you were here this spring. On Tuesday, we announced that we thought we were going to remain in session, but we were going to drop attendance policies. By Friday, we'd announced that we were moving online. So we will respond and react with the safety and care of the entire Blue Gold community as our #1 priority.
Dr. Carney, what support has been put in place to help faculty learn best practices for online instructions?
Well, the campus has a wonderful resource. Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning is here, and it is fully staffed and ready to help faculty deliver the fall curriculum. And it's not just online, right? We're talking about maybe not offering the class in the way that it was offered in fall of 2019. Maybe there will be some remote learning going on in the classroom, and maybe the faculty member has never used that before. CETL, the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, is here to help faculty make that transition. My hope is that faculty and instructors who were here in the spring actually learned a lot about how to deliver curriculum in a non-face-to-face environment. I know I learned a lot about how to deliver curriculum in a non-face-to-face environment. So our hope is that faculty and instructors will be able to build upon what they learned last spring and apply it, if need be, to the fall semester.
Dr. Anderson, I think we just got the toughest question of the night, and it's going towards you. So will teriyaki bowls be possible this fall?
God, I hope so. We are looking at finalizing the menu with the vendors that we have. I'm sure they're going to be looking at all the popular options and figuring out a way that we can still have those. And I'm sure that is one that we can still do as a grab and go option. But the minute those are finalized, I will be the first to find out whether or not teriyaki bowls will be available.
And Dr. Anderson, if you could also maybe talk about just the options regarding those with allergy needs and dietary restrictions, will those still be offered and taken into consideration?
Absolutely. We want to make sure that everyone can have access to the same quality food that we've had, regardless of what your dietary restrictions are. There will be plenty of options for you.
Chancellor, we have a question about when is a final decision going to be made about athletics and the fall season?
So the WIAC is the athletic conference that we participate in. The athletic directors and coaches from across the system have been evaluating the conditions sport by sport, and they'll be making their recommendations to the Council of Chancellors, and we hope to have something resolved within the next couple of weeks. We're watching carefully the decisions that are coming from the NCAA and what's happening with conferences across the system, across the entire country. So I expect that we would have some answers within the next 2 weeks. There'll be a lot of changes. I think there'll be fewer games played. And one of the big question marks is, will there be any fans allowed in the stands? As of the moment, the maximum we can have in an outdoor event is 250. If you combine a couple football teams, that's about all that's there. So it may be a situation where we'll have to be watching football, volleyball, women's soccer, all streamed online.
All right, we're going to ask the Dr. Anderson and Dr. Carney, in addition to face masks, will there be plexiglass shields around front desk areas, checkouts, and in the classrooms?
Yeah, the front desk checkout areas, yes. A lot of them have already been installed. Again, that's in an effort to keep everyone safe, specifically our frontline employees that are going to be out there. But yes, plexiglass shields will be around in most areas that you come in contact with on campus.
In terms of the classroom, we're looking at whether plexiglass shields in front of the classroom are necessary, or if proper social distancing between the instructor and the students is sufficient. We're also exploring whether instructors will be able to wear face shields while they're lecturing, which will help, I believe, for instructors who are worried about being heard or for having their lips be seen while they're instructing.
All right, we are coming up towards the top of the hour or the end of our hour. And so, Chancellor Schmidt, we are going to ask you sort of our wrap-up question. And so, you are a parent of a college-age son. So what advice would you give your son about returning to school this fall?
So I have a son who will be entering his sophomore year in college. And he made it very clear that if classes were not in session at the college he was going to attend, he was not too interested in continuing the online presence. But he's also concerned about making sure that the conditions at the university are safe. We are committed to making sure that the safety of our faculty, staff, and students is number one in all of our decision processes. It's important that Blue Golds understand that the safety measures they take are not only for their own safety, but for the safety of others. The wearing of the mask, the tracking of symptoms does have some impact on you getting it personally, but you're really protecting others as well. It's a sign of respect. And I know that the Blue Gold community knows how to come together in a crisis. I have every confidence the faculty and staff and students will come together to protect one another, to be cautious and to be careful. You know, as it goes, Blue Golds fly together. And so our message is fly right and fly together. I have every confidence that as you return to the campus in the fall, you will find the same kind of transformational educational experience you've come to know and love about a Blue Gold quality education. So I appreciate all the great questions. There are a lot of others online that we couldn't get to, and we'll be trying to post answers to many of those questions.
All right, thank you, Chancellor, and thank you to all the students and family members who have been a part of this virtual town hall. As a reminder, you can continue to check out our Return to Campus webpage for the latest updates. Just click on the COVID-19 link on our homepage and look for Students Return. There is a link to that page for an email where you can ask further questions. Tonight's email address that we use for this virtual town hall will not be available after today. However, we will be sending you a link that has the video recording of this session. Please also watch for further updates over the summer in your email and on that website. We are looking forward to welcoming you back on campus in September. Until then, have a great remainder of the summer and go Blue Golds.